Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me again. I usually say this, if you're on this early, you're probably watching the recording replay to let me know you're here. It is a beautiful day in Northern Nevada. I've taken most of the day off, so enjoying it with my family. We're already in the mid-90s, which is crazy for me. So let me know how it is in your part of the country. If you've got some gorgeous weather. I love summer. It is my favorite time of year other than Christmas, but I just love the outdoor activities. So I hope that you are enjoying this time of year too. So I'm going to start by introducing myself. My name is Evelyn Knight. I am the host of the podcast, The Child Care Business Coach, the CEO and founder of Child Care Business Professionals, which is my company where we help child care business owners find success while maintaining high quality standards. And I also own a child care center. I've owned 3 altogether in my career. I'm down to 1 right now, but we are a pretty large center. We have about 190 children enrolled. We don't run 190 a day, but we do have that many enrolled. And for those of you in the ECE world, you know how that goes, where we do have, with part-timers, they just all don't show up every day. So I also have another program that I don't talk about as much, which is a director's unit where my director actually helps coach directors. So if you're an owner and you have a director who needs some coaching, my director does do that. She's amazing and definitely wonderful. I will be talking about her today and a little bit about how you can have that stellar dream team. I'm definitely going to be mentioning her today. So as everybody hops on, let me know that you're here and just say hi and let me know that you're watching. Hopefully the comments will come through for me. They don't always, but when I'm live, but hopefully I'll be able to see you. If I don't acknowledge you, it's because my feed is not showing in real time. So I always prefer the interaction. It gets kind of lonely on this side, so I like to see that interaction. Again, I hope you have your workbook handy. If you don't, there is a link on the website, the workbook here, that you can have it emailed to you. I think I'll post that for you guys again too, so if you don't have the workbook, you can get a hold of that. We've been going through our 5 pillars of what makes a successful child care center. And of course, our first pillar, which is the absolute foundation piece, must be every day I'm going to be referring to it because it really just becomes such a huge part of your program, is your vision. Just really having a clear understanding of your vision. The next piece is having that intentional culture, which also feeds into that brand. So that branding, the culture, just being very intentional. The next one is your dream team. You've got to have a strong team. You're only one person and your team is responsible for so much. So you've got to be able to have that strong dream team in place. Tomorrow we'll be talking about, and again, it's so key, you guys. If you really want, and I'll touch a little bit on that today on structure and procedures, because it really, if you want your staff to be successful, it really take that. And if you want good employee retention, you've got to have procedures and structure. And then on Friday, we'll talk about high quality research-based standards and how that really was just a huge flipping point for me, in that I was able to charge more, my wait list just skyrocketed. It really made a huge difference for me in my business and it took me to the next level. So that is what we're doing this week. I'll probably be popping on a little bit on Saturday and Sunday just to say hi to you guys. I have some surprises in store this week. And then on Monday, Christina Richmond, one of my financial advisors, is actually going to be coming on with me. And I have a really cool surprise I cannot wait to announce on Monday. Christina and I will be announcing. I'm really excited about it. Something that her and I are teaming up on for you guys. And she's just amazing. One of the people who has trained me to become the leader I've learned how to be, and also who really helped me get my financial house in order. I did not know anything about finances. When I started, I thought I knew. I mean, I was running my household, but suddenly I was a business owner, and it's so, so different. So she really, really helped me take it to the next level and just get control of my finances. I've been working with her for a long time, and I'll be working with them forever. I need the accountability. You know, I so strongly believe in coaching. I actually have 2 coaches right now that I work with, because a lot of it is just keeping us on track and accountable. And until the day that I am perfect, I will always need somebody who knows more than me and who's better than me to help me. And since I know I will never accomplish that, I will never be perfect, I'll always have somebody there to help me. So I'm going to jump right in. Today is one of my favorite subjects. And today I will be talking about establishing your dream team. And I know the first thing that childcare owners and directors think of when I say that is, oh, well, I can't hire them, I can't pay enough. And I can tell you guys that is not true. I hear it a lot that, well, the area I live in, the pickings are so slim. You guys, not true. I've owned a center in a town of about 5,000 people where I'll tell you, you think there's slim pickings? That city would have had slim pickings. But you can find these people. They are there. I'm telling you guys, big city, little city, it doesn't matter. They are there. It really all depends on the leader that you are. And I was the owner once upon a time who just thought I need to fire them all. They just afford to hire good people. I'm stuck with the quality that I have. I had that frame of mind. And mind you, a lot of those people still work for me. They are a part of my dream team that I talk about today, right? Same people. The change happened within me. It had to start with me. It starts at the head. It always does. When it comes to leadership, it starts at the head and trickles down. Great employees don't just happen. You have to create it. So I'm going to talk to you guys about my journey through that and how we kind of discovered, how I really discovered and made that pivot. And when I realized that I really need to study this and I really need to learn how to cultivate that dream team, right? Because that's really what we're doing. We are cultivating the dream team. And I have taken, I'll tell you, I have hired 16-year-olds who've turned out to be amazing employees. And some of my best employees have been just straight out of high school. So we'll go through like how you can turn those people in. But first I want to start with telling you guys a story about how this all kind of began for me. I've always been very people-centered. Human capital, I've always understood the importance of that, right? Between your customers and your staff. And it's always been very, very important to me. But I used to also be that bitter boss that wanted everything I wanted my staff to be like me. You know, I just couldn't understand why they weren't so dedicated, and I just didn't get it. And we had an experience a few years ago that was a huge eye-opener for me. And we actually, my center had lost 2 children. We had 2 children that actually, and it was just coincidental, but within a year, we had these 2 children that had terminal diseases. And they were both just, onset, just surprise. One of them, of course, was cancer. And so within that year period, we literally saw 2 families lose their children. And one of the little girls was actually the first baby that I had ever signed up. And she had gone through my center. She was in our before and after school program. So this was a child that I had started with at 6 weeks old. First infant I had worked with on my own as a private owner. And then she passed away. And it was devastating. I think she was about 8 years old when she passed away. And so a couple months later, it was actually one of my employees' children that passed away. And both were very sick, but it was really hard, so hard on my staff, so hard on me. And one of the things that happened during that time, we actually, ironically, had an infant in our care that had an undiagnosed lung disease. And while he was in our care, suddenly he wasn't able to like catch his breath. And I'll just never forget it. It was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. I just remember my assistant director of Today, at the time she was my lead infant teacher. She came running through the building, found me, has this baby in her arms. The baby is blue. She's like, what do we do? I don't know what to do. He's breathing. He's not, and he was little, so he wasn't choking. I mean, this was a little baby. So we just, but you could see he was turning blue and he was lethargic. He could barely stay awake. So no fever, no other symptoms. You could just see like he definitely was not getting oxygen. His hands were blue. It was terrifying. So I immediately ran up, called 911, was on the, had my assistant come with me, or she was actually the teacher at the time, but she's my assistant now. She came with me into the front office. And that, I can tell you, like what that woman did to try and keep that baby awake the whole time, it was the longest 10 minutes of our lives waiting for that ambulance to get there, because we could see he just kind of like kept coming in and out of consciousness, right? And my director and I were both there. I was on the phone with 911. She was talking us through it. We were describing what was happening the whole time. It was an absolute terrifying experience. So the ambulance finally arrives. They take the baby in the ambulance. And of course, my Alana, who was my assistant, or who is my assistant now, she wanted to go. Of course she wanted to go. And the ambulance, people in the ambulance like threw us out really fast. And I knew something serious was happening when they were like, you guys, we got to go, get out of here. And Alana was just like, no, I'm going with him. And since we weren't guardians, we weren't allowed to go. It was horrible. We were not allowed to go with him. We were allowed to follow, but we weren't allowed to go. So we sent somebody to follow. I knew Alana could not have been the one. She was way too shaky. So we sent another infant teacher. I was too shaky. But basically the ambulance left. A few hours later, we got a phone call. And it was actually one of the EMTs that were in the ambulance was calling me, and she said to me, she specifically asked me when she called, and she said, hey, I have got to tell you, your team did an amazing job. Had you let that baby fall asleep, or had you waited even 20 minutes later to call us, and he would have been dead. And it was amazing. Like, I can tell you that hit me. It felt like a wave just crashing over me, and that reality of how, and I knew something was bad because of how they rushed us and the ambulance just took off out of our parking lot. But I didn't realize like how close to dying he was at the time. And I remember I went to visit him in the hospital, and it was just so awful. He was actually in an induced coma in the hospital, and they ended up finding out he had this rare disease that they didn't know about. So it was just a crazy, surreal experience. And now he's great. He's a little boy. I think he's older now, doing fine. He's already, in elementary school doing, so he's doing great now, right? But at the time, it was just absolutely terrifying what we had gone through. And the minute that ambulance drove away, it was amazing to me how when we were in the middle of it, we were on it. We did our jobs. We were just on it. We had the energy, right? But then you get like this exhaustion. And then when I got that phone call, it really just drained me. It just drained me. So after those incidents, between losing the two children, having this incident, my staff went into a collective depression. My entire center, you would walk in and it was just such a heavy feeling. I mean, it was so hard because we just lost two children, and one of them was an employee's child. So knowing that one of your own lost her baby was so hard for us to live with. I called my workers' comp to see if there was any kind of mental health I could bring in for my staff, and there was really nothing. I just called around to see how can I get them help, because it's bad right now. And I decided to do a staff meeting, and just to try and kind of figure out like, how can we reset mentally? I knew we needed a mental shift. I knew we needed some kind of like just way to just change our perspective. So I called the staff meeting, and this is the staff meeting I was telling you guys about on Monday. I've done it every year since, but this is the origin of how it happened. And basically it was January, and I decided, it's a new year. We need to put all of this behind us. We need to start fresh. Last year was horrible. If you've ever been at a center and you've lost 2 children, and just having children die that were your own is so hard to get past. And the fact that this happened to us twice in 1 year, and it almost happened a third time in our care, was so overwhelming. So I knew like I had to do something drastic. So I decided that I was going to remind my staff why we do what we do. And I was going to really just focus on those positive wins and just really go over with them where we've been successful. And instead of focusing on these 3 incidents that have happened, and at this time, we have been taking care of so many babies. And it was, hi Alana, I saw you jump in just now. You're going to be great on for this one, because I just told the story about you actually. Alana she just jumped on, and she was the one who actually had to take care of the baby that was turning purple and not breathing. Well, he was breathing, but we didn't know what was going on, but she just knew he wasn't getting oxygen. So anyway, that January, I knew we had to do something drastic. And it was just so hard to work every day, knowing that we almost lost a baby in our care. We'd lost 2 other children. It was so hard. Hi, Elizabeth. So what I did the staff meeting, and I really just decided to bring us back to our vision and our why, right? And I really just decided that we needed to get focused again. So I just put this whole thing together. I made a vision board, and I brought them my vision for the first time. This was the first time I introduced my vision to my staff. And I told them, this is why I do what I do. I told them the story. If you guys have been listening to me for a while, I've told you guys a story, which I'll tell it again really quick, but this one's really hard for me to get through without tearing up. So I'm going to tell you the very summarized version, because this one always makes me want to cry. So I had come from my other center in this neighboring town. I had owned 2 centers at the time. I was something really, I don't even remember honestly what happened, but I just remember it was really hard. I was driving from one city. They were about an hour away from each other. And it was something that happened that I was just so upset about. And I literally sat in my car and I just prayed. And both my centers were struggling. Things were going rough. And I asked God, I'm like, God, I don't know why I'm here. I honestly don't know why you have me here. I knew it was my calling at one point. I don't see it anymore. And so I just said, God, if I'm supposed to be here still, because I don't want to do this anymore, you've got to show me. I need something to know that I'm still doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I literally walked from my car. I literally said that prayer in my car, walked from my car to my building, went into my office, put my purse down, and one of my infant teachers actually brought me this baby. She hands me this baby and tells me, I just wanted you to meet our new baby. She just started today. She was abandoned in a hospital in Las Vegas, and she was born addicted to crack, but her mom just left. Her mom is it was meth, not crack. Her mom is a meth addict, left her there, and she was already over 2 months old. Nobody would foster this baby because she was a meth baby. But we are now, keep in mind, I am 9 hours away in Nevada from Las Vegas. There was a family here in Northern Nevada that was willing to foster this baby, but they couldn't afford to stop working, and they couldn't afford to pay the co-pays that foster parents normally have to pay. Well, one of my philosophies is if a foster parent is stepping up to do this hard work, they shouldn't be charged a copay. So I waive the copays. So basically, this teacher hands me the baby, and she tells me that this child would not have a home right now if it wasn't for us and what we do. And so I told my staff that story that day. And I don't think they had never heard it before. They didn't know. They didn't know my why. They didn't know I do what I do. And so that day I just told them, this is what we do this for. That baby, that's why we're here. You know, these other children, this is why we're here. This is my goal. This is my dream. This is why we're here. I then also gave them poster board, and I had each classroom create their own vision. And that was such a huge turning point for my center that it really just, that's why I do it every year now. That was such a huge, where my team really became this really strong team at that point. And I've always had a group of my girls that were a really strong team, but there was never like, it wasn't the whole team. You know, it was like these little niches. There was like just niches of teams within the team, but it was never like this unity. That staff meeting changed everything, and it was amazing. Like we actually told stories that night of the wins we had. I got to hear some of my team's dreams and goals that night, which just blew my mind. I mean, some of them had such amazing aspirations, and they had such amazing, and there was like one teacher in particular that had worked for me for 5 years, and she had these visions that were just awesome and amazing, and I didn't know about it because I never bothered to take the time to listen and find out. So that staff meeting and all really changed my entire perspective. I realized that, first of all, I needed to listen a lot more and to just hear. It wasn't just all about me. It wasn't about just my dreams and my goals. It was about their dreams and their goals too. And for the first time, I just realized, like, they're just not here to clock in and clock out. They have dreams too, and they're in childcare because they love it. And now I realize that I could give them a job that they loved and something to really work for, and that we as a team could fulfill this amazing vision that I had, right? And my life's work. And that year and that moment was honestly that pivot that my entire business made. It was that thing that we needed to get to the next level. So it started again with me sharing my vision. But the second thing it started with is me listening to theirs and understanding for the first time that these women are amazing. And these are people that at once in my life I thought weren't worth anything, you guys. That's what I really want you to understand. I had the mind frame that a lot of you have today, right? Where you think, I need to get rid of them all. They're all, you know, they just don't listen. Oh, they just don't get it. They just won't do what they're supposed to do. That was the mindset I have. Many of those people, over half of my staff today, are the same women that went through this with me, okay? So that's where I want you to understand it's not them. You know, like I'm not going to say always, sometimes it is, but it's not always them. They do have those dreams and aspirations, but a lot of times we as leaders are so focused on our own that we're holding them back from those dreams and the aspirations that they have. We aren't letting them just fly with it, right? So that was a huge eye opener for me, just sharing my dream and my goals with them, helping them to understand that they can be a part of it. It gave them something bigger to work for. It gave them that purpose that I later found out through like all the books I read now, that is the number one motivating factor for employees, right? Is having a purpose in work. And it made me start listening to some of their ideas. I mean, before this, I was extremely controlling in so many ways. I was actually called a Hitler boss at one point from one of my staff members because I wouldn't let them do anything without my okay. You could not change artwork on the walls without my okay. You couldn't move furniture in your classrooms. I would do it. I didn't even let them try, right? Their classroom arrangement had to be done by me. I wouldn't allow them to have ownership of their own classrooms. But that staff meeting opened my eyes to the amazing people I had there and the abilities they had and how capable they really are. And so that was when I realized I had to change as a boss, and I went from that manager to leader role. And that was just that whole pivot. And, everything became focused on my vision. I ended up taking some classes. Well, I've taken the classes already on forming my vision, but I hadn't shared it yet with my staff. So everything changed after that for my staff too. And they really started to buy into my vision. One of the things in my vision, and you guys know that my center scored a 5-star rating, even though we were awarded a 4-star because we weren't NACE accredited at the time. My center scored a 5-star. The first time we went through the STARS program, we scored a 2-star. Okay, that was the first time. And that was before all of this happened. And I think what ended up happening is that when they had that buy-in now, and they suddenly understood why they were here and they had purpose, and I also allowed them to fly, right? That really was that pivoting point. I started listening to them. So I would literally go in and tell them how everything had to be done, but I wouldn't hear when things weren't working for them. So that's when I just really started understanding, okay, I need to let them explain too, what does work, what doesn't work. Hi, Debbie. And so it just changed everything. I mean, literally within an 18-month period, my center went from being rated as a 2-star to a 5-star. And that was just that huge shift we made, right? We scored 5-star. And then we decided, let's get NACE accredited so we can get that 5th star. In Nevada, you don't get that 5th star unless you have NACE accreditation. So, and actually, the way that we were rated, it's from a scale to 1 to 7. We actually scored 7s across the board, but we're only awarded up to 5 stars. So it was that huge shift. And I remember reading the reports, like the difference between the two reports from our Silver State Stars, and just that difference. And it was really, you guys, it was my staff. That was not me. That was my staff. And this is the same staff that we had a 2-star on, so it had, but the shift had to come from me. I'm the leader. They're following me, right? And then I had to duplicate that in my director. And so and now we're duplicating it in our assistant director. So that is really the key that I have to tell you guys, is it was that moment for me and my staff that everything changed. So kind of a cool moment. So now I'm going to go over with you guys some of just the key principles now that I've learned through the years of my research and training that I've done on being an effective leader. So now I'm going to go over some of the things that I've actually learned from other awesome, amazing leaders. And I'll tell you guys, I've been kind of trying to bring you guys different books that I read. Yesterday I showed you It Starts With a Why. This book is one of my absolute favorite business books. It's called, if you guys can see it, it's The Entrepreneur's Guide to Building an Unstoppable Team by Kelly Roach. And Kelly Roach is actually one of my business coaches. I belong to her business coaching program. She's amazing. And she is amazing book, though. That's like, I buy all her books. She's just amazing. So that's just one of but what I have brought together, there's actually a Kelly, but from so many different great leaders and bosses out there that I've just brought my program together. My husband is actually an amazing manager too. And I think I've mentioned before that he used to train he was a trainer for a major corporation. He was one of the top managers for a corporation. He's gone in and actually constructed entire dealership management teams. So he's taught me so much too about manager training and how you deal with staff. That just and for him, it's just instinct. I mean, his instinct when it comes to managerial stuff is just amazing. So one of the things I want to start with talking about today is starting at the hiring process. I think where we really get tripped up is we hire the wrong people for our centers to begin with. And the reason for that is because we are always looking at skill and knowledge, right? We're looking at these resumes. Oh, she's worked at this center and that center. She's got experience. That's great. Or she's got her associate's degree, CDA, whatever. Awesome. So we hire these people based on their skill and knowledge. And then they come into our center and they turn out to be absolutely useless. I'm sure every single one of you, you know what, give me, I've been there, if in the comments, if you've experienced this, but I'm sure all of us have experiences, right? Where and I've done it, I've hired these teachers that on paper, they look amazing. And then you bring them into the classroom and you're just kind of like, what did I just do to my business, right? So that's where I think we need to stop focusing on skills and knowledge, because skills and knowledge can be taught. It can be trained, okay? I can train somebody on how to be a good teacher. I can train somebody on how to do calendar. I can train somebody on, interactions in a classroom. What I cannot train is motivation and attitude. I cannot train a person's core values. Okay. So yesterday I had you guys figure out your values, right? And that is so important in knowing what you're looking for in a person. So instead of hiring for skills and knowledge, we need to start focusing on those values. We really, really need to start that attitude and their motivation. How motivated are they to work? See, Roxy says, yep, we hired a certified teacher. Yes, with a degree and had absolutely no clue. Let the kids throw stuff at parents. I hired a lady with a bachelor's degree, and she was, to be honest, one of the laziest people I've ever hired. And and then again, I've hired high school girls who turned out to be my best employees. Just amazing employees, right? They're just awesome. So, and that just really, there was a year actually where I hired a high school girl and I hired a lady with a bachelor's degree. And this high school girl literally just ran circles. I mean, she picked up my training so quickly. She was amazing. That was the year I realized that I'm not hiring for degrees anymore. I don't care how many centers they've worked for. I don't care what they've done. It just didn't fit my culture, right? And I also stopped basing wages on experience. Everybody starts at my center at the same amount of money, and we do a 90-day review, and then we base their actual pay on what we feel they deserve after 90 days. So that was why I started that, because I have stay-at-home moms had zero experience. I've had these high school girls with never even had a job that have run circles around people with bachelor degrees. So that's where I completely changed my hiring model and decided that I will train them. I will figure it out. I get them their CDAs. I will put them through the TEACH program. I'll do what I need to do, but I don't hire anymore based on experience and knowledge. I hire based on motivation, attitude, and values. And when I do interviews, that's what the questions are geared towards, finding out who is this person at the core, right? It's not about what kind of experience do you have? Have you worked at this center and that center? I'm asking some weird, I'm sure that some of the people I've interviewed have thought that my questions are pretty bizarre, because I'm looking for personality. Right? I'm looking for who they really are. I can train them on how to be a great teacher if they have what it takes. That's the key thing. So the other thing I want to bring up to you guys, so that's before you even hire, right? It's who we're looking for. So when you're placing your advertisements, everything is your interview, it's all going to revolve around that. And then once they're in, you have to really nurture them. Stephanie? Stephanie's asking, I'd love to know what you ask. I can share my interview questions with you guys. If you guys don't know, my background is in neurological psychology. I do have a degree in neurological psychology. So my questions might seem really weird to you guys. I think somewhere I've typed up an explanation on why I ask the questions I ask, because they'll seem kind of odd to you. But I can't think of any off the top of my head that are like, I don't know why, I'm just blanking on them. But I'll have to explain in order for you guys to know why I ask what I ask, because there's a purpose behind it. Like, oh, I thought of one. It's not one of the really odd ones, but if you want to figure out if a person in an interview is going to be a gossip issue, you want to ask them. So you just ask them, in your last job, what would you change about your last job? And the way they answer that question is going to tell you if they're going to be a huge gossip issue, like problem. So those, if they like start telling you, oh, let me tell you what I would do, and they just start going off and off and off and off and off, that is going to be an insubordinate person. They're probably going to have gossip problems. They're just a lot. So there's different questions you can ask that trigger responses in natural human behavior that will help you to get those, to weed those people out that you don't want. And I'm pretty sure I have written up an explanation on why I ask what I ask that I can actually post for you guys. So once you've hired the person, you find the right person, and sometimes people fall through the cracks. Just went through it last year where I hired this girl that I absolutely fell in love with her during the interview process. And I have to say, I didn't follow my full interview process, which is probably why this happened to me. And she ended up being just a nightmare, but my fault on that one. So, hi, Kristen. Kristen is one that used to be a part of my dream team and one of my former employees that I absolutely love still. So, one of the things that we do now, and I'll tell you guys in my new hire process too, that is huge. And one of the things I came to realize is I don't work with these people. So as I'm doing these interviews and I'm picking these people out, I don't know. I realize I don't work with them, right? I'm not the one who's going to be in the trenches every day with these people. So I have 3 phases to our interview process now. The first one is I interview them. If they pass my interview, then we ask them to come in and do a 2-hour observation where they don't have to do anything, just observe the classroom. The reason I do that is because it weeds out those people who have this fantasy view of what childcare is and they have no clue of what it really is, right? The other thing too is that you can really observe. Somebody who loves children and is going to be a hard worker cannot just sit and observe. They can't do it. They get in and they play with the children. They ask to start helping. And I mean, they actually start working, right? So you're going to see a lot of their character that way. If they just sit in a corner and really observe, you don't want them. And then the third part of my interview process is we take a group of our teachers, and our teachers have a roundtable discussion with this employee, and they get to ask them a lot of questions. And I just kind of observe and sit back. Then after that person leaves, those teachers and I have a conference, and we talk about this person. And Roxy's asking, do we pay them? No, we do not pay them for the observation. They are just there to observe, nothing else. So I tell them that they don't have to do anything. I just say, just sit in the classroom and watch. That's it. Just part of the just observing what the classroom is like, and that's it. So we don't pay them for that. And I don't like hold them. I tell them I'd like them to do 2 hours, but there have been people who told me, oh, I've got something. Is it okay if I do an hour? And I'm like, yeah, I don't care. That's fine. I just want them to see reality of what it really is like to be in a childcare classroom. So that third piece, though, I try to get as many staff in as I can. Sometimes it's only 3, sometimes it's 5, right? But I want my girls to ask questions, and I want them to see what's going on, and then we talk about it. And that is probably between those last 2 portions of my interview process are the most powerful by far. So much better than me on my own. So this last lady who slipped through the cracks last time, I didn't do that third piece too. And I can guarantee you, had I not left, and we were just in such a hurry, I don't remember why I didn't do it. I think that was when my husband was first starting dialysis, so things were chaotic for me. But that last piece is just vital in weeding those people out, because my girls know what question, they know the kind of people they need to work with. And it really, they come up with some amazing questions. So that's a really, really important piece. Let's see, Elizabeth asks, you put them in the classroom, you're thinking of hiring? Yes. Okay, so I do kind of. So I usually, first I will put them in the classroom. If they stay for the full 2 hours, they're going to spend an hour in the classroom we're thinking of hiring them for. But if that's an infant toddler classroom, I also like to put them in an hour of our preschool side, right? So I want them to see infant toddlers and the preschool pre-K side of things too. So I do like to expose them to both sides, but I start with the classroom that they'll be working with. That way my staff that's in that class too can kind of feel if it's going to be a good fit. And also when I'm doing the teacher panel, I do make sure I include at least one of the teachers in the classroom that person will be working with. Since they're going to have to work with them, we need to make sure that they are going to be a good fit. So that is something that we do. So that's how we decide on who we're going to hire, right? So it's a long process, it's a tough process. It filters out so many people that there's not a whole lot of people I think this last time I hired, there was literally 2 people I could choose from because I'm so picky before I even interview them. And so that makes it kind of difficult, but I'll give you guys some other suggestions on where to find people later. So don't worry too much about that. There is other things I do that I'm much more successful on than putting out, job postings to attract people in. Then we go through a 6-month onboarding period. Onboarding is absolutely vital to a staff member's performance and to a staff member's longevity. Usually if somebody can make it past that first year and a half, you've got a keeper. But a lot of times within that 6 months, according to studies I've read, people still kind of feel like they don't fit in to the program, right? Even if somebody doesn't fit in for the first 6 months, they usually typically, statistically, will stay in for another 6 months. So I hope you can replay too, Sue. So basically that first 6 months, you want to make sure that you've really integrated them into your team and they've got that solid integration in, right? And that is honestly that key to keeping staff for years and years. So what we do is my staff, we do a 30-day training, new hire training, and it consists of videos and these worksheets. Worksheets are super easy. They have one worksheet every day they have to complete and turn into me, or not me anymore, it's my director now. But basically each worksheet is just a series of questions that they have to ask their co-teacher, and it guides them through it. The videos are going to be videos of us just videotaping ourselves in the classroom. That's it. Literally take our phone, get some really good interactions, really good stuff, and then they watch them, the videos. The videos are pretty short too, so you don't have to have them out of the classroom for too long. But we just kind of trickle those in so that they understand what does it mean to have rich interactions. How do you, and I know this sounds crazy, but 90% of people coming in do not know how to do this, but how do you properly read a book to a child? How do you facilitate conversations to just build on vocabulary and stuff like that? So those are the kind of videos that we're going to do. In my training pamphlet that my new hires get, I ask them questions like, I want you to watch your lead teacher or your coach. I don't like lead teachers so much. Sometimes you have no choice, but I try to do teams, not lead and assistants. But I'll tell them watch your co-teacher during playtime. And I really want you to pay attention to how they're facilitating learning by walking from one center to another. Listen to the questions they're asking. And I'll ask them, list some of the questions that you hear the teacher ask the children in order to get them to get deeper into play. Something like that. So just so they start out super easy. It's in the beginning, first week is pretty much just licensing standards. Really just the super easy stuff. And then each week we build and build and build and get harder, right? So our new hire training it really gets integrated. So my goal is by the end of the first 30 days, these teachers that I've hired are ready to go through our STARS rating program. They are ready if any EYC facilitator comes in and is observing us, they're ready. So that's how my new hire training is created. And I can tell you guys, when I first created it, it was 5 days worth, right? And then I would go to Brandy we need more. And then there was another 5 days. And then there was another 5 days. And then there was another. So now it's 30-day long. But I know that sounds huge and excessive, but remember, they're doing it while they're working. So it's incorporated into their workday, right? We're just teaching them to how to observe, how to really, absorb things. And it's so much easier than having a staff member 6 months later who still doesn't know how to interact properly with children, or who still just stands around watching instead of playing with the children, right? That is why it's so important to me to do it this way. I want to make sure, one of my pet peeves, especially if you hire somebody from another center, is they're always doing the busy work that's really just frivolous and doesn't mean anything, and they're not really playing with the children. So that's where my new hire training is so important to me, to make sure they're doing it my way and to make sure that we've got these quality standards being met. So after the first month, my director, she will actually do an observation and give feedback. And she does this every month. Every classroom, every teacher, every month is observed and gets feedback on that observation, right? So for the new hires, though, it's particularly important. And normally she'll do it pretty informally, where she's just writing up what they did well, what they need to work on. That's it. But for the new hires, it is actually like a checklist. It's going to be just like an employee review. And then what we do after that, so at the end of every week too, for their first month, we do check in with them. We go through their packet, we read through it, we check in, see how things are going, okay? At the end of their so after their first month, then we wait 30 days, and we do it again in 30 days, and then she's also going to do one of the evaluations. And then what we do is every 30 days, we just kind of check in with them, see how it's going. We do one-on-one. My husband calls them checkups from the neck up, where we're making sure that they are still doing okay, their morale is good, things are going well. And then at 6 months, we do an official review. And also during that, so within 120 days, also they have that set, like the states, all of their required training that has to be done. So during that, with my new hire training, they're also doing all the state training. So, but that's why I incorporated mine into their days, because it would just be so much. They have to have 24 hours of that training. So within that first 6 months, they have been trained a lot. And they get so many touch points, right? And I make sure that other teachers are having touch points with them and whatnot, just to make sure that they're integrated into our employee family. That is really, really important, to make sure they're integrated into our employee family. So that is huge in employee retention and bringing them as a part of their team, as a team. Through my new hire training too, every week I have a tidbit on getting them into my vision, really getting them to buy into my vision. I do this during the interview process, every step of the way. I'm shooting them with my vision, and I'm also getting to know them and seeing what is their vision for their life. What do they want to accomplish? So that's when I can see oh, maybe we should put you through the CDA program. You would be a great candidate to get your CDA. Or maybe this teacher needs to go through the TEACH program and get their associate's degree. Empowering them, right? I'm looking for ways to empower them. And you guys would be amazed at when you're empowering them, listening to them, making them feel valued, and bringing them into the team, they stick with you. The loyalty becomes amazing that they end up having. So I'm probably going to go a little over. I'm going to warn you guys today, because this is one of my favorite subjects. But I'm just going to go over some other things really quick that I've learned throughout my career that are really, really important to creating your dream team. One of the biggest issues I see with owners is that they tend to assume that everybody is like them. One of the things I need to tell you guys is whether you're a director or you're an owner, is we are A-type personalities, okay? We have a certain personality type that we assume everybody else has. So we assume they have our work ethic. We assume that they should be like us, that they think like this, but they don't. You guys, our employees are employees. They are not A-type personalities. They are not go-getters. We cannot assume they are like us. We can't assume they think like us. I used to really fall into that trap all the time of going into a classroom. I did the work, and I had a teacher one day, and I always used to think to myself, oh, they're just going to watch me do it, and they're going to do it because they see me do it, and then they can just copy me. And then one day I had a teacher say to me, man, I wish I could do that the way you do it. And I'm thinking to myself, why can't you? To me, I'm like, just do it. But later, I actually had a coach, one of my coaches tell me, well, they're not you. They don't think like you. They don't, and I should know this, you guys. I have a master's degree in psychology, right? I should understand and know this. But she had to tell you, like, you need to specifically go in there and say to them, this is what I need you to do, and this is how you're going to do it. Now watch me, and then do the same exact steps I do. So I didn't realize that, and it was like another huge pivoting moment for me, and I learned the importance of coaching. So don't assume that people are like you, because they're not. They're not, otherwise they would be a director too, or they would be an owner also, right? They're not A-type personalities like we are. And that's where we have to become coaches. One of the things I've learned from my coaches is coaching is 10 times more valuable than training. So much more valuable than training. Let me see. Roxy asked, do you count their observations by someone as training? Just an idea. Could you count that as training if I monitor is talking through the things? Yes, I do. So we do. So it doesn't go towards our state hours, but we do consider our coaching and in-the-house training as training for like us as a company. We do. And every one of my staff gets that monthly. So absolutely. And so back to the coaching. My director, Brandy, is amazing at coaching. This is one of those moments where the student has surpassed the teacher. She has so far surpassed me on being an amazing, amazing coach. That is why I have her train directors and I don't, because she does a way better job of coaching. I love to train. I love getting in front of groups and doing trainings, but I tend to fall short when it comes to coaching. So something I've learned too, in order to become a great leader that keeps my staff with me, is that you've got to find your weaknesses, and you have to find somebody who is better than you at those things and delegate it to them. And I mean truly delegate it. Don't just tell them, you got to give it to them. It's got to become their job. So Brandy, a great coach, so much better at it than me, that I no longer go into the classrooms and coach. I will do the trainings, she does the coaching, because she is amazing at it. She does go in there and she gives them step by step, okay, I'm going to do this. She'll show them, and then as she shows them, afterwards she explains to them very thoroughly what it is that she's did, right? I was terrible. I would just go in and I just want to get it done and get out, and I just didn't understand. She has such a great grasp and understanding of that she just is the coach for our center, and she just gets it done so well. So as a director and or an owner, you got to figure out what are those weaknesses you have, and you've got to delegate them. And that was I can train and train and train, but I am not a great coach to come one-on-one with my teachers. I just, I had unrealistic expectations. Brandy was way better at that. So it's something I've delegated to her. So that's just something, just to keep in mind, because training, if you don't have training and coaching in your center, I can guarantee you're having employee problems. You got to have the coaching. Coaching is, and if I didn't have Brandy, of course I would do it. I have to figure it out. I'd have to do it. I just don't like doing it as much. I would rather get in the classroom and just work and play and be with the children. It's that stopping to explain every little thing to them that just would drive me nuts, which is part of the reason why I typed up my new hire training, right? Because all of those things are explained in the written form. But there's things that are always missed, which is where Brandy really shines. Those are the things that she really pull out of people. She's amazing at it. So that is why she trains on that, and I don't. She loves it, so I have her do the training. So the other thing that's really important is clearly stating your expectations in writing to your teachers. And I have a podcast episode. I have a great story about that happened to me, but I'm running out of time, so I won't tell that to you guys. But I do have a podcast episode where I tell the story on a time that I figured out that I just had some very unrealistic expectations of my teachers. I was disappointed in one of my best teachers. And I did her employee review and realized it wasn't her, it was me, because I had never verbalized my expectations to her. So expectations have to be very clear, just like you would a 2-year-old, right? They have to be very clear, but they also have to be in writing. They've got to have that really good job description to know exactly what you expect of them. You cannot assume that they know. Don't assume that just because they see you running around like a chicken with your head cut off, cleaning and trying, juggling, their brains aren't wired to know. They're not us. They don't see things like that, right? They don't notice, and they're not going to pick up on it. They're not going to some people will, but most won't. Don't assume it. You got to verbalize it. You got to verbalize those expectations. So, that is just another really, really important thing to know, that a lot of times we set our staff up for failure, but we blame them because we haven't verbalized what we really expect of them. So they might think they're doing a great job, but they're not, because we're not communicating with them. And that is also why those monthly coaching conversations that Brandy has with our staff is so important. And even before, I would have monthly conversations with our staff, but she took it to a whole new level, where she goes in, does an hour-long observation of every single classroom at least once a month, right? She's observing every classroom and every teacher every month. And then she does a classroom meeting with them and individual meetings with them. So not only is she spending an hour in the rooms just sitting back and observing, but then she's also going back and having one-on-one conferences and group conferences every month. Every classroom gets this accomplished. Whereas when I would do it, I would just have the conferences. I wasn't doing the observation piece, which, as you can imagine, I'm missing a whole lot if I'm not in there observing, right? So that's another thing just to really keep in mind. And if you're not, if you're the director and you're not great at it, see if your assistant director is better at, it's something you can delegate. It doesn't have to be, if you're the owner, it can be your director, it can be somebody else, but just make sure it's getting done. It's gotta be done. And you can also videotape. It doesn't have to be live. You can, that's something that she has started doing, is videotaping the classroom so she can watch segments later. Videotaping is amazing too. This is something that I ended up actually having her start doing, because she can play it back with the employee so they can kind of critique themselves and they can see it for themselves. So let me just look through my notes just to make sure I got everything I wanted to talk about. And okay, so one other thing I really wanted you guys to just on those expectations is making sure that your expectations are really precise and they're repeatable, right? That they are realistic, that they can be repeated over and over and over. And that it just makes it so much easier for them. And that's why they need to be in writing. Because you need to be able to go back and just say, okay, here it is. This is what it is, and this is what I need you to do. The other thing to keep in mind, you guys, is some people really just want to, they're just there to clock in and clock out. And just know that we're not always going to have those passionate people. But when you do find them, you got to hold on to them. You've got to give them as much as you want them to give you, right? In order for them to just stick with you and get that loyalty. So again, I do have your homework, the workbook for you guys. And a lot of this I did right in here. The only one that I really didn't, there's one about goals. Oh, what goals can you create for your teachers? That's one like what I was talking about, about doing that, like how I did the staff meeting. Help them come up with goals, right? You kind of want to lead them into these realistic goals, but help them find those achievable goals that they can fulfill. It really is the game changer. So, and just really valuing them, show them your appreciation. The top two things that keep an employee at a job is knowing that they're appreciated. And number one is knowing that they have a purpose and that their work is meaningful. The second one is knowing that they're appreciated. So, if you guys notice, money isn't even in that. It's not. It is not the top reasons people stay in a job. So don't blame low wages and what you can afford. It is not the reason. The last thing I told you guys I was going to help you out with is finding those employees. One of the things that I do, which I've talked about a lot, is I recruit. If I see somebody that I think would be a great match for my center, I ask them if they want to come work for me. I love to bring in stay-at-home moms. some of the best employees. They are so loyal. A lot of times they're bored at home. Their children, if they're in preschool, their children are getting bored, or they're getting this alone time. The moms are starting to get bored as their children get older, but they don't really want to be tied down to a job that takes them away from their children. So they can be some of the best employees. And when you invest in them, and that is key, you guys, you have to invest in your employees if you want them to invest in you. But when they see that you're really invested in them, they do invest back in you. And like Alana was on here earlier, Brandy, those are two, the employees I talk about. They're my right hand ladies, my director, my assistant director. But Alana started with me. She's been 12 years almost now, and she actually moved here from the Philippines. I hired her, gave her a chance. I've helped her go through college. I really I invested in her, and she has become one of my most loyal, long-term employees, and one of my most amazing employees, right? Brandy also, the loyalty is amazing from her. And again, I've helped her go through college. I just really invested in her too. So remember, when your staff comes to work for you, that is a two-way street. You've got to invest in them too. You have to help. And one of my passions is really just to help women see that there is more to them, and that they are professionals, that they can, whether they're stay-at-home moms or not. And like Alana wasn't a stay-at-home mom when I hired her. Brady actually, it was when I bought Zoo, and she was already there. But she had it in-home and then went to work at Zoo. And then, and now she's my director, right? She has risen through the ranks, and I've helped her go through college, helped her, there's been times where we've worked on papers together, whatever, but she knows I'm invested in her. My staff knows that I am invested in them, that, I love empowering them. And sometimes they outgrow me. Like Kristen was on here earlier. Kristen ended up getting her degree and moving on to a really good job. Like, not that my job isn't really good, but, just so I understand sometimes they do outgrow us, but that's okay. We have to be in it for them. That is the whole point. If you want to get your team to really make that shift and become a dream team, you've got to commit to them first, right? And when they do fulfill their dream, like, one teacher I can tell you that I think of in particular, she was amazing, awesome, was with me for years, went and became a nurse practitioner. Well, that was her dream. Being in childcare wasn't, right? You have to be happy for them and let them go, and let them, just really spread their wings, right? So there are going to be times where you lose them, but that's okay, because you help them get to that next level of their life, and you help them to fulfill their dream. So when you really invest in them, they will invest in you too. They really will. And like those staff members that, like Kristen, who was on here today, she doesn't work, but she's still here, right? Her kids still come right. It's just that lasting relationship, and it's so worth it. And even when you lose somebody that you absolutely loved, knowing that they are fulfilling their life's dream and their life's goal is just awesome. So, and some of them will stick with you though forever. Some of them will be there for the long haul and will be there for years, and will be there, like right now, what we've been through with this COVID-19, my staff that is there for me, just amazing, because they love my center. They love that place, and they know that I'm invested in them. So they're willing to invest in my center, right? They're willing because we are invested in them, and they know how much we really, truly care about them. So you really want to see them get to that next level, invest in them. That's what I have to say. Empower them, invest in them, and listen. That's pretty much what I have to say. So if you're popping on later, feel free to ask me any questions, you guys. I can come back and answer any questions. If you guys have any questions, just let me know. And I'm sorry if I miss them. I know my stream is coming in really slow, so I'm not sure if I've missed comments. But that's what I have for you guys today. Tomorrow, I will not go over on time, I promise. This is just one of my favorite subjects to teach on. So I will talk to you guys tomorrow about your program structure, policies, and procedures. And I promise I will not make it boring. I know it sounds super boring, but it won't be. Have a great night, everybody. Bye.